And my friends, our God is with you.
And also with you.
Thank you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, Lord.
When the people saw that neither Jesus nor the disciples were there, they got into the boats and crossed to Capernaum, looking for Jesus. When they found Jesus on the other side of the lake, they said, "Rabbi, when did you get here?" Jesus answered them, "The truth of the matter is, you are not looking for me because you have seen signs, but rather because you have eaten your fill of bread. You should not be working for perishable food, but for life-giving food that lasts for all eternity. For this the chosen one can give you. For this one bears the real seal of God." At this they said, "What must we do to perform the works of God?" Jesus replied, "This is the work of God, to believe in the one in whom God has sent." So they asked Jesus, "What sign are you going to give us to show us that we should believe in you? What will you do? Our ancestors had manna to eat in the desert, as the scriptures say. God gave them bread from heaven to eat." Jesus said to them, "The truth of the matter is, Moses has not given you bread from heaven. Yet my God gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the one who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." "Teacher," they said, "give us this bread from now on." And Jesus explained to them, "I am the bread of life. No one who comes to me will ever be hungry, and no one who believes in me will ever thirst." My friends, the gospel of the Lord.
That song, Ingrid. I was just thinking, wow, how lucky I am to be here. I love praying with you all. The faith in this room is palpable. Is that right? Cool. So have you ever noticed, my friends, that no matter how much or how little we have in life as human beings, we always seem to want more? Ever notice that? I don't care how poor I have been living on the street or how rich I've been living in my house now. There's always like this. I want something more. I was just at Sam's Club today. I had to worry about spending the stupid $45 gift certificate because I could only spend it today. It's like, oh my God, why do I need more? You know? See, something in the human heart says we gotta have more. There's something innate almost in our desire. St. Augustine coined the phrase, he said, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in thee." Now, I know that's dated language, but I think maybe St. Augustine was onto something, that really there's something in our core that also knows that only God can fill up that hole that we have, that desire that we have in our lives. So now what I'd like to do with y'all is I'd like to go back to this awesome Exodus story that we had. If you didn't catch it, it's really cool because in this it talks about the Israelites and they're in the desert and they're all ticked off at God because they were slaves, but they had a lot to eat, right? So at least they got fed in Egypt. And now they're out in the middle of the Egyptian desert, they're dying of thirst, and they're dying of hunger, and they're kind of ticked off at Moses, and they're ticked off at God. Like, why did you even bring us out here in the first place? And Moses has a little conversation with God, and God says, okay, this is what's going to happen. There's going to be quail, and there'll be this stuff on the ground in the morning, and they need that. So, I don't want to ruin anybody's images of God away, and I don't want to ruin anybody's maybe paradigms, but we're going to shift to some paradigms tonight, okay? So, here's really what happens in the story of Exodus. And it is a great story. But you have to remember, what we have is the Israelites, who are used to being in Egypt, right? One area of the country. And I happen to know this only because I got to be stationed there for a little while. So this is really cool. So they come out of Egypt, they go around and they're out in the Sinai Desert, right? So it's not that big of an area. They wandered around there to walk. They didn't have GPS. They just wandered in circles. They did wander in circles for 40 years if you look at the trace there thing. In the desert, they're dying of thirst and they're dying of hunger. There's this amazing thing that happens at this one particular place in the desert, and I got to see it myself. In the evening, almost at the right break of dark, right at dusk, if you and I would call it, these things called desert beetles. Desert beetles come out of the sand. And when they come up out of the sand, because they've been hiding from the heat all day, they come up out of the sand and they start running all over the place. Now, these desert beetles are like really, really bad cockroaches. They're really big. I mean, I've seen them. They're about like this big. And they got some humps and they got some feet and they can move really fast. Also, what happens is the hillsides have a fair number of birds. A lot of, quote-unquote, we call it quail. So what happens? The beetles come out at night, and what do the birds do? Aha! Supper! They come down. We're going to have a big miracle going on here, folks. People say, oh, it was a miracle of Exodus, the manna in the desert. No, it was beetles and quail. The quail would come on the beetles, they eat the beetles. Guess what the beetles do after they eat the stuff that they find? Yes, we know what they leave behind. Do you know what manna is? It's beetle excrement. I got to taste it. Actually, it tastes not like chicken. It tastes like almonds. And when you get up in the morning and you look over the desert floor, it looks exactly like what Scripture said. It looks like hoarfrost. It's this really fine, really almost paper-thin kind of stuff that's all over the ground. And what God did in this whole Exodus story is he says, I'm going to test the people. You take what you can eat in one day. That's all you're supposed to collect, right? Well, God's not done. Because what happens to beetle excrement is if you collect it and you keep more than what you have, heat and light begin to denigrate that. And it begins to fall apart. And it turns into mush. And it gets wormy. And it's just gross. So, what happens a few lines later in this Exodus story is precisely that. Just what I started off with. The people just couldn't help themselves, but they wanted more. So they went out and they got more. And it turned to junk. And God says, did you not trust me? Did you not trust that I will take care of you? And I told you, you don't need to collect more. Just collect what you need. You see, my friends, whenever we celebrate Eucharist, whenever we gather as a people, none of this is magic. Almost growing up, I almost thought it was magic. We talked about it a little bit this morning, right, Jake? Don't yawn, dude. I'm not that bored. We talked about it a little bit this morning about how sometimes, as many of us were growing up, the Eucharist was like, ooh, they couldn't touch it and they couldn't bite down on the host and they couldn't do all this stuff. Now all this crazy stuff around it. The Eucharist, my friends, is not about something that I do or is done up here around this altar. It's all of us. It takes all of us to create Eucharist. There's no single person Eucharist. It doesn't happen. It's not some abracadabra thing or a bunch of rituals. It's us gathering together and remembering and praying and singing and recalling and praising and celebrating and sharing what the divine that dwells in each and every one of us. That's what we're celebrating. That's why the gifts sit back there on that table. It's not to give us something to do to bring them forward. It's to remind us that's the symbol of our lives. That's what we bring into this Eucharistic experience. On that table are bread and wine, but that's really a part of who we are. And then we bring them forward and we ask God's blessing on them, and we break it and we give it back to one another to remind ourselves that we are the Eucharist. We are what lives in this world. That's what Eucharist is all about. Let's put a little bit more perspective on it. This morning, Jake and his family spent the entire morning kneading the bread that's in that bowl back there. He was almost sweating, poor little kid. He was almost sweating, pushing down on this pile of bread. Joyce had to make it, so it took her like 3 hours And Kathy had to set up for liturgy, and you had to sing, and you had to play, and all of us have this stuff that we have to do in order to make Eucharist real in our lives. It's reminded, I think we are, that Eucharist really is, in many ways, a lot of work. Wouldn't it be a lot of work to make that bread every Saturday? It would, wouldn't it? It's a lot of work, and it's work on our part to make sure that we understand that what we celebrate is each other's lives and the holiness that lies within. Eucharist, if you don't know, it comes from the Greek, and it's two different words, ou, which means well, and charistai, which means to offer graciously. So to well offer graciously, to do a good job, right? To do a good job offering a praise and thanksgiving. Given those facts, what we celebrate also offers us one of the greatest challenges of our lives. One of those greatest challenges is to see and to realize that each and every person is essential in the kingdom of God because God dwells in us. So Jake, next time your brother takes you off, remember that. Remember that every time somebody doesn't treat you with respect, every time that somebody acts less than Christian, the fact is God still dwells in them. And maybe our challenge is to invite people to realize that God is with them just as is with us. Next time our emotions blind us to God's presence in our lives, or the life of somebody else, then maybe we can remember truly what the Eucharist is all about. That God dwells in us even when we can't see it.